So we are with Shaivalini and Savari, or
Asavari.
Asavari, I'm sorry, Asavari Kumar. We are talking today about your animated short that's going to be a part of the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, Creatures of Chaos, uh, dealing with grief and trauma and various forms of hardship, all in 6 minutes.
Thank you for summing that up.
We we've taken thousands of years and we've just shoved them into 6 minutes. No, this is a very beautiful animated piece. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. How did you two decide to work on this piece together? Was it something of discussing, familial issues? Was it, and I'm not going to guess that you're related, even though because Kumar is a very popular last name.
Related. Shai is my younger sister. And yeah, it actually came from our sort of childhood, like the original idea for it. We both grew up in India where mental health struggles were sort of often met with like stigma, shame, and silence. And so the cultural silence around mental health really shaped our worldview from a young age. And although mental health challenges have always existed, particularly after the pandemic, they became like even more visible and urgent. So I'm an animation filmmaker and visual artist, so art has always sort of been a refuge for me. So during this period, I turned to pottery and teaching and mentoring to sort of ground myself and reconnect with community. And I started making these clay creatures. You can see some of them behind me. And they're kind of like physical manifestations of my own emotional chaos. And I started to call them creatures of chaos. And I started sharing these creatures at pop-up markets around Los Angeles in my neighborhood. And it led to a lot of really interesting conversations with people about their own emotional struggles. So seeing the resonance like around this topic, and specifically at that time, Shai and I started talking about maybe this would be a good idea to like explore this and investigate this a little bit and kind of do an origin story about these characters. And that's how Shai and I started working together on this project.
And based on the design of your offices, Shai, you are the more organized and structured one. So you're the engineer.
Well, my background is graphic design and visual communication, and I was in charge of the art direction for the film.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think we were very lucky to have an amazing team of animators, Lisette and Catherine, amazing producers, sound design. So it really it takes a village also to make a short film. And we are very lucky that we just found the right people to help us make this project happen.
When you show that you mentioned in India, this is something that's not readily acceptable when it comes to mental health care. Both immigrants to the United States, how do you show the short to your parents and what's their reaction? Do they look at you and go, "Oh, you're too Americanized. This is just Western influence. Be like the rest of us and either shove it down or start drinking." Like, what what is
Yeah,
the mindset
that
behind it?
is an excellent question. So we did actually show it to them. And in the beginning, they were like, we don't really understand what you've made. And I think they're used to watching sort of like they watch animation, they watch like features with like sort of more structured arcs and like neat resolutions. And since this was something that was more of like did not have a solution, the end of the film, it's not like all neat and tidy. It's really about like the power of community and vulnerability. Although community is a big part of Indian culture, I think vulnerability is something that is happens on like a case by case basis. So I think it definitely allowed us to start having conversations with our parents around mental health. And this is what we hope it'll do for communities that struggle with something like this. So the moment you see it externalized, you're like, I don't know what it is, but this is not necessarily something that feels like a personal dig, so it's something that's out there. You're talking about like a story about these characters, so you can sort of talk about it with a little bit of distance, and I think that allows a little bit of comfort for people to talk about it. And I think because it's animation, because it's not live action, I think there is space for people to like project without feeling that they're too exposed to talk about it. So that was kind of like the reaction we found within our family when we did like kind of like early friends and family screenings. Yeah.
So I'm first generation American, and the notion, and you both, I presume, immigrants to the United States.
Well, I live in Denmark,
Okay.
Copenhagen.
So
Yeah.
into Europe,
Yeah.
into the West, there's also this mentality of we don't have time to evaluate mental health or mental crisis because we already live in chaos, that we're trying to navigate the chaos where, mental health crisis is a Western luxury. What do you tell the people that have that mindset in watching your feature or your short?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? I think we come from very communal cultures, and there is a lot of talking and conversing, but it's really not about sort of like replacing that. It's really about starting to be more upfront about these things, right? So we recently had a conversation with another interviewer who mentioned that they were going through a lot of stress and they were feeling really overwhelmed, but just like a small conversation, just acknowledging that they were stressed out with a coworker really helped them sort of dissipate that and help cope with that in the moment. So we're not really asking anyone to make like a huge shift, especially because it's like it does feel like a very Western concept. It does feel like a very Western luxury. But if you are spending so much time talking to people and oftentimes talking about things that we feel are like kind of surface level, we're just asking that maybe you could, if someone asks you, "Are you fine?" You can just say, not today." It's not like a huge replacement of what you're already doing. It's just about sort of approaching conversations a little bit more intentionally.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think like the another thing that the film does is like even though we are based here in the West and like that is sort of our context, this sort of transcends this issue that we're trying to highlight or the permission that we're trying to give people to express themselves and to talk about stuff. It sort of transcends geographically, we feel, because the stressors are still there. They just change their shape, I think, based on the context. So I think that has also been a big learning for us when we've showed it to friends and family here versus friends and family back home. And the reactions are all varied, but I think the core of them is very much the same.
And sometimes I think to Shai's point, it's so like we take a lot of things for granted. We take for granted that we're stressed and everyone's stressed. And if you tell someone that everyone has stuff going on in their lives, and everyone knows it at some level. But something we noticed after showing this film to like our parents and other family in India is that they were like, "Oh, that's right. Everyone has something going on," and we kind of like forget about it. And because it's a short, it's something that you can come back to again and again. Sometimes I think it can really do well just to serve as a reminder that that's something, it's taking you away from being sort of hyper focused on what your immediate world is, and just think about the larger context of you're not alone, and then just to feel seen and heard a little bit.
Sure. I'm guilty of this. I'm going to freely admit it, and I don't care who gets mad at me at it. You know, like I'll sit there, and when people want to vent about their problems to me and they seem very first world problems, and I look at them and go, I know somebody that was a minesweeper in the Iran-Iraq war. Believe me, your problems are nothing. And I'm guilty of being dismissive of it. How do I break my mindset of I've seen far more trauma than you have, and not uh, devalue their experience because they clearly don't have the same shared worldview that I do?
Yeah, Shai, do you want to
Yeah,
start?
I would say I think it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, and it's something that we might have the tendency to do. My trauma is bigger than yours, your trauma is bigger than mine. But I think we each have our own levels that we operate within. Like I live here in a very socialist welfare state. My context is very different. And it's very different from the US where my sister is living, or India where my parents are living. But I think instead of sort of like trying to equate the levels or sort of like rank where what you're feeling. I think it's just about reminding ourselves that we just need to hold space for other people, no matter what their trauma looks like. Because when I immigrated here from India, my worldview completely flipped upside down, because I came into a very homogeneous, very structured, very well functioning, robust society where almost nothing was broken. But I still had my own traumas, I still had my own stressors. And it of course took people here a while to understand my context. But I think over time, the more we communicate, and I think this is what the film does a good job of, is reminding us that at our core, we're all the same, even though our context and our surroundings are very different. So I think it's just about reminding ourselves to hold space, irrespective of where the other person is at, what their sort of surroundings are like. Because I myself have also experienced this.
Your animation style in this is, and this isn't meant to, it could come across wrong, so please forgive me if it does. It's family friendly in its design. It's not intended for an adult audience. It's not intended for a child audience, but all ages in how you designed it. When you went through the original storyboards and the concepts, how specific were you in choosing this style of animation and making sure that it could be watched with your 5-year-old all the way to your grandparents?
Well, I think a big part of why our work looks how it looks is because my sister and I, we've been running our studio for about 10 years now, and we have, after many, many iterations, build a style, and that style is sort of like it's sort of representative of us also as people. Like, we're trying to make something which is very optimistic and very hopeful, and that's sort of like the genesis of our combined style, because we come from very different backgrounds and we have very different expertise. But I think hope and optimism has been something that we've always worked with, so that sort of is at the bottom line of the style. And I think we also, because so much of it was also informed by the ceramics that Asavari was doing, which is also sort of linked back to the core style that we have. I think we were also very intentionally letting it be as simple and organic and not complicated as possible. And that organically led to it becoming something which is very age agnostic. So a lot of the development, and we had some really talented people, Lisette Diaz, our character animator, our character designer. She was really good at sort of taking our thoughts and knowing our core house style that we have as Supernova design, and making it into something which is very optimistic and hopeful, but it still has some weight to it, because we are trying to convey some heavy messages through our style. But yeah, at least that's how I sort of see our style kind of coming into play.
Yeah, and to Shai's point, I think like the brief we sort of provided our character designer and animator was that since the genesis of this was clay and the fluidity of clay, and there is an element of play when you're playing with mud as a child, right? So we definitely wanted to make that sort of like central to our design process, a lot of softness, a lot of rounded edges, a lot of fluidity. And that's something appeal to children because, that's sort of like the headspace they're in. They're intuitive, they're curious, they want to play. And then it's also, for me as an adult, I found myself really drawn to that because I was missing a sense of play. So I automatically gravitated towards it. So those were sort of like the more conceptual parameters around some of our design animation choices.
Well, it's very beautiful, and I like the use of the elderly man as one of the primary characters. There also begs the question, though, when you show it to your family, does somebody go, wait a minute, that looks like Uncle So-and-so, you're calling him out?
That kind of looks like our dad.
Yeah, it does.
We didn't start out like wanting it to be that way. We were just I was actually channeling my grandfather, but my dad is in his 70s right now, so he kind of has he looks very similar to my grandfather, so it kind of ended up becoming him. And this is something my mom pointed out. She's like, you have dad in your film, and I was like, oh yeah, we kind of do. Yeah, so that was funny. It was not intentional, but I love that people see themselves in it, and you know, if they feel called out, then it's not necessarily in a bad way, because there are no real like antagonists or protagonists in this. They're just people from different walks of life.
So you've immortalized your father living in chaos, is what you're telling me.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's what's happened.
We have to have a little bit of sense of humor about this, and I'm sure he got a kick out of it. Yeah. Being a part of this film festival, so we have to remind people, Asia is a very large country that extends from Turkey to Indonesia. I mean, we have island nations in our continent. We also have a lot of nations that don't get along with each other. You know, historical rivalries, political situations, you know, and not to go deep in that. But the fact that this is the Los Angeles Pacific, excuse me, the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, in dealing with the multiple cultures that we have from our home continent, and knowing that there are the rivalries and there are still uprisings in certain issues, whether religious, political, economic, whatever, how do we find the balance coming into this festival of going, all right, we're all being represented here, and making sure we're not trying to step on each other's toes in the process?
I think I would give a credit for a lot of that to Visual Communications as an arts organization. I think the culture they've cultivated and the years of activism they've had, it originally started out something that was more Japanese American focused. And since then, it's sort of like expanded to include like Pacifica cultures, South Asian cultures, and their intention is really to explore the nuance of it. And I think it really boils down to how how each screening block is programmed. This is my 4th year with the festival, so I've gotten to know sort of like the programmers and the sort of like folks working behind the scenes a little bit, and they're very, very intentional about connecting filmmakers as people first and then as artists, because most of the time you go to film festivals, you end up in a mixer and you're like, oh, it's networky, and you're trying to figure out like what this person can do for you, and you know, like, and they're thinking, what can you do for them?
Right.
This is not like that at all. And every mixer that I've gone to, really just connecting with people at a basic level allows for these conversations to happen very organically and fluidly, and it allows people to feel safe enough to hold space for other filmmakers and other types of art, even if it necessarily work with their sensibilities.
Well, you know, they started with the Japanese ideology and moved west. You know, the border has stopped at Afghanistan at the current point, so hopefully in a few more years, the border keeps going and hits the Mediterranean, so the rest of us are also represented, and reminding people that we're also Asian. And in that aspect, they're like, you know, we're on the continent too, so it's a big place.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, for this year's, I'm also a mentor for the Armed with a Camera Fellowship, and 2 of my former students that I taught at Cal State Long Beach are part of 2 different fellowships that are also their work with the organization is also sort of screened at the end of the year at the festival. So one of my students is Japanese, Filipino, and white, and my other student is Egyptian. And so it really has come a long way as a sort of like what the definition is, and it continues to expand, like you're saying. And I think given that it is a nonprofit organization, the onus really shouldn't be solely on them, but they do take it very much to heart, and they really push to continue to expand the borders of what that definition entails.
Well, you just look at the map and you go, oh, Turkey, Indonesia, Asia. And sorry, Turks, just because you have one city in Europe, not European. Listen,
Yeah,
I'm good. I'm still the original name of the country is Asia Minor. Like,
right.
There's no discussion. You took Constantinople, made it Istanbul. You have one city in all of Europe, doesn't count.
100%. And borders are kind of wild, right? Most of the time when we look at history, they were made very arbitrarily. Division of land was very arbitrary because someone just couldn't be bothered. And there's so much religious and
there's so much overlap culturally.
Yeah. And so I think art is something that intends to continuously cross borders and dissolve borders, and that's what we hope the film will do. And another reason for us not using dialogue and using open captions is to make it accessible. And of course, you know, this is just the first festival. We hope to go to a lot of different festivals in different places in the world, and hope that everyone will find something that they can take from it.
And the beauty in using captions is that you can change the language at any instant.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, but then the people that can't read are going to get mad at you, so you're going to offend somebody at some point.
Well, you know, actually it doesn't really it's not really required. It works without open captions. It's really it's not subtitles.
Right.
It's really more for like helping folks that are unable to hear with the sound design, because the sound design really plays like the major part in telling the story. So there is actually no dialogue. So
There is no
in that way, it really does work for regardless of language.
No, it's absolutely beautiful. But, you know, someone always gets offended about something, so I have to tease it just a little bit, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we lived in India. It's hard not to offend anyone. Regardless of what you do, someone's going to be mad at you. So, you know, we're very aware of that.
Right. Russell Peters used to have a joke about, you know, when a white guy sees another white guy, oh, you're white, I'm white, let's go grab a beer. When Indians see each other, oh, you're Indian, I'm Indian. Where are you from? Oh, we don't talk to people from there.
Yeah.
So, I'm not stealing your joke, Russell. I'm explaining it. So, you know, and you have to give the author of the joke the full credit. Don't steal people's material. So,
for sure.
So this is officially the world premiere then?
That's correct.
How exciting is it, not only as the world premiere, but to be accepted as your short in a festival in Los Angeles, the heart of cinema? Yes, I know it was created in France, but the heart of the film industry is Los Angeles, and to present this to the world from here.
I think it's very exciting. I mean, we had really, really hoped that this festival would pick our film, because we were looking for something that was local, that was community oriented, at least that had sort of a culture of people wanting to connect with not just your work, but also with you as a person. And so we couldn't think of a more perfect festival to premiere with.
And the fact that you get to work with your sister. Yeah. Granted, there's 10,000 miles in between you, so there wasn't the fighting that was from childhood. But, you know,
it's good to keep us separated a little bit.
It's easier to argue this way, because she'll send off an email, you'll look at it, you'll curse her out, and then respond politely to the email and what's going on, rather than being children looking at each other, what the hell's wrong with you? So,
oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
the delayed response is helpful.
We managed to fight over email too, but you know, we get along enough to be able to make art together. So I think that's the important part.
And we managed for 10 years, so that's saying something.
That we have that working for us.
Well, it's fantastic, and congratulations on your short. It is premiering on May 3rd at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival at 9 p.m. at the AMC Atlantic Times Square. Atlantic Times Square 14450 North Atlantic Boulevard, Monterey Park, California. As everything's going well for you, by the way, Shai, are you going to be in town for this, or
Unfortunately, no. I'm going to try to hopefully be in festivals if we get through here.
Yeah. Being a part of the short block, how also exciting is it for you, and important in being, tied with other creatives?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the program lineup recently, and one of the people that I'm screening with is actually a former student of mine, which is really lovely. So I actually mentored her at school while she was finishing her senior thesis, and our films are playing back to back. So I'm really happy to see that. It's a very proud moment for myself as a teacher, and seeing all of the other sort of short films coming up. There's such a variety of styles and such a powerhouse of talent in that block, and I'm really excited to get to meet everyone, watch everyone's films. I mean, I'm a film nerd, so you know, like nothing about that is like not exciting for me. So I'm really psyched to go and watch the screening.
Beautiful. And so we will plug the Kumar Sisters. Where can we find the production company? Where can we find you on social media? And if we want to take a class with you, what university or college are you teaching at?
So I'll start with the last one. I teach animation at California State University, Long Beach. You can find our production company at Supernova Design on Instagram and on LinkedIn. I personally don't have an Instagram. Shai has one. Shai, you can plug yours in.
Yeah, I'm at Shaivalini, my first name.
You kept it
Oh,
very simple.
and our website is www.supernovadesign.net.
All right.
Yes.
Well, since you are about 15 minutes away, we'll go grab a chai one of these days, you know, and make it happen. Thank you both so much for your time today. Making your father a creature of chaos was just beautiful. No, I am teasing. The film is absolutely wonderful. 6 minutes. I would love to see a full-length feature come from the two of you in the near future. Thank you so much for your time. May 3rd, Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. You know, a wonderful piece.